What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday, covering the NFL and all the fun stuff, NBA as the season approaches, and MLB. We'll do some MLB playoff predictions, even though I don't watch baseball too much. But with that being said, you already know what the drill is. If you haven't already, make sure to go check out my full Week 3 predictions. We'll also get to that later. As one final reminder before the weekend starts. Happy Friday, everyone! Best day of the week. In my opinion, either that or obviously Saturday. But come to the week close. Thursday night football just happened, so we'll obviously recap that, and then, like I said, go over my final predictions. But Thursday night football, it was a very good game. Surprisingly, I think most people thought in Buffalo, the way the Dolphins have looked the first 2 weeks, the way Buffalo's came out, that miracle win against the Ravens, the BTA against the Jets, we thought this would be a walk in the park. We surprisingly got a very good game on Amazon Prime last night. And it was a little bit shocking, but also not. I just had, this gut feeling, it's a short week division game. So these opponents know each other very well. And Miami just had a lot on the line. Mike McDaniel, his job, has been getting, tossed out there to, is he the franchise QB? Does Tyreek Hill want out? And there was kind of, this little gut feeling that Miami will show some fight that we didn't expect, and we got that last night. And I think Dolphins fans will obviously be disappointed. They're 0-3. Buffalo, is going to be they'll take it any way they can get. A win's a win in the National Football League, no matter who you're playing. But for me, obviously there was a lot of fun plays in this game. Early on, Miami set the tone with a great kick return to get the ball past midfield. They just kind of run the ball. They were doing a lot of checkdowns to Achane early on, Waddle, Hill, and I believe it was Ollie Gordon was able to punch in on 3rd and goal. So they would run the ball, trying to set the tone, and they went up 7-0. But then obviously Buffalo showed their dominance. Josh Allen was just making some plays, had a nice shovel pass to the 3rd tight end. Now I'm forgetting his name, but he's been a stud for them so far. One to Dalton Kincaid. So the tight ends were, I think it's like Matthew Nas. And then Dalton Kincaid had a touchdown. So Buffalo kind of took control 14-7. They're moving the ball again before halftime. Looked like they were about to go up, 21-7, but then a big sack by Bradley Chubb. Finally, this Dolphins front seven was able to generate some pressure, and it forced a field goal that Prater, been great for them this season so far. Obviously, kind of stepping in, kicking that game-winning field goal, just shanked that one. That was, obviously not the best kick. And then that gave Miami momentum. They're able to drive down the field to efficiently. They were moving the ball. They were trying to play. The biggest emphasis Mike McDaniel had in this game was, mistake-free football and scoring when in the red zone. They did that. A nice little slant route to Jalen Waddle, who had some big catches in this one, even though it wasn't, big stats. They were able to, get things rolling. And it was tied at halftime, and it didn't really feel like that. It felt like Buffalo was controlling most of the game, but Miami, was just in the game, and that's what they need to do is hang around. We thought maybe a little upset happens. They come out. James Cook once again had an amazing game. Showed why. I was maybe a little bit worried. Missing some training camp time, sitting out preseason, he'd look rusty. Heck no. Off carrying an even better start than what he did last year. Just rushing. I believe had another 100+ yard game. In this one was just very efficient. Scored a big touchdown. Buffalo moving the ball once again with Josh Allen. They're up 21-14. And, that's what they need to do. And that's when they're most interested. They have a balanced attack. But then Miami and Tua answered again. And I believe this touchdown was to Tyreek Hill, just, beat Christian Benford on an out route. And it was that was when, Tua finally started making some plays, because before that drive, his ADOT was like negative yards. Like he was just checking it down to Achane a lot of the time and just hoping to generate, from there, because nothing was open in the middle of the field. I think a majority of it. But then it was like a 3rd and 12. He just scrambled, made a great throw to Tyreek Hill on the run, I believe, had a 4th down conversion to Jalen Waddle. So Miami was starting to make some plays. And that's when the momentum felt all with Miami. It was tied at 21. And the Dolphins defense did settle in. I believe it was 2 drives. They forced the Bills to punt. And then it was a big, I believe, like 9 minutes to go. They stop Buffalo near midfield. The defense gets their 3rd stop. We think, okay, Miami go down, score, can win this game. And then the roughing, the penalty on Seidler, I believe his name is, the defensive lineman, just so unfortunate. And that's what's killed Miami so far this season, is just the mental errors. And that was run right there that kept the drive alive. And there was one earlier in the game where they make the tackle on James Cook on 1st and goal, back them up to like the like 5-yard line from like the first, but he just throws him down. I believe that was linebacker Brooks. Miami's mental mistakes is what hurt them in this one and prevented them from winning this game. And that was obviously a big one. I get you're trying to block the punt, but the odds are very low still. And just can't make contact with him. It was the roughing the passer, so it wasn't even the 5-yard penalty. That still would have had it as a 4th and goal, but rather set of downs, Buffalo with James Cook, pound the ball, and then eventually, I believe Josh Allen finds his receiver for another touchdown because he had 3 touchdown passes in this one. And kind of, just big unfortunate there because that, puts you in the spot now where your offense has to score. And Miami, this drive, once again, Tua, they were moving the ball methodically, finding Jalen Waddle, running the ball with Achane effectively. They get within Buffalo's 30, and then Buffalo finally dials up the pressure with like less than like 4 minutes to go. Bernard makes a great play on the ball, and Tua just kind of stared down his receiver there. Just can't happen because it was kind of predictable where he was going. He didn't look at either way, just kind of in that one spot trying to find that hook curl. And then Buffalo, with the great field position, is obviously, or they had a big conversion, I believe, to Elijah Moore that helped set up the field goal. So it ends up being a 31-21 Buffalo win. And obviously for Buffalo, you'll take it. I would say the offense, for the most part, obviously looks solid. There was that rough patch in the 4th quarter, end of the 3rd quarter, that they do get bailed out by the call, but great teams convert on those. And they not only got field goal, they got touchdown to, force Miami to have to go the distance. And it's just unfortunate because, like I said, Miami mental errors lost in this game. Just, you can't play like that. You got to be a disciplined team. And they're kind of they're an undisciplined team right now, just taking unnecessary penalties, just mental errors. And Tua, was playing methodical football, but it was going to be, who won the turnover battle that was going to win this one. That was a big emphasis for Mike McDaniel heading into this one. And they lost the turnover battle. They couldn't capitalize on the Buffalo muff punt. And Buffalo obviously wasn't the clearest game, but it's a short week division opponent that have a lot to play for. I think that's underestimated when you're in a win now mode. You're going to come out a little bit harder. And I think Miami, took this game personally. They knew they need to win this. Buffalo's had their number. They heard it all week. And it looked like for a second they would have that upset, but nope. Buffalo, great teams just find a way to win this one. And Josh Allen, delivered when it mattered most. And that was the biggest thing. He found Shakir, who had a big portion of catches in the second half. So Buffalo, like I said, you obviously take it. Big win at home, in front of this home crowd. And it's sad that's Orchard Park's, last time, although that stadium already does look dope. It's going to be right across the field. So shout out Buffalo, man. Josh Allen's been playing MVP level to start. That defense didn't look great in week 1. Obviously, though, that's Derrick Henry. You're gonna, in Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, any defense is really gonna look silly, but they got stops when they need to, and they did this without Ed Oliver, Matt Milano. So we're missing some of the key players. Obviously, Ed Oliver, who got the turnover in the Buffalo game and helped disrupt Lamar Jackson. So injuries were also a big thing in this one for Buffalo's defense. But Terrell Bernard, they just got veterans that can make plays when it matters most, and yeah, that was the difference in this one. Miami 0-3. Things are looking a little rusty, but if they show that effort the rest of the season, they will be able to win some games. They're not going to lose 33-8 against the Colts, even though the Colts are a good team. But yeah, just a lot of question marks, and obviously for Miami, you got to be pissed off losing that one, considering you had it on the ropes. But with that being said, we'll finally get in. It's the week predictions. How am I done so far this season? So in the 46-man league so far with tonight's or last night's win for me predicting Buffalo, I'm at 25-8, which is solid. Take that. And then just a final, overview of my picks and just kind of final previews, things to keep an eye out. Atlanta versus Carolina. I think the biggest thing can that front seven, like they've done against Tampa Bay for the most part and a lot against my Minnesota Vikings, can that front seven continue to get after it, make Bryce Young comfortable, Bijan continue the game he had last week and, had a good game, at least receiving wise against Tampa Bay, but just get that run game going and Michael Penix continue to thriving. And hopefully, and my biggest intrigue will be JC Horn, who looks like one of the best corners of football, versus Drake London, who will win that matchup. Maybe if Carolina can get some turnovers, make this game a little bit more uncomfortable for Atlanta than they like. Green Bay versus Cleveland. I'm obviously riding with Green Bay in this one. They've looked like one of the best teams in football. Micah Parsons fully healthy. But I am intrigued. Can Cleveland's front seven, make this game uncomfortable for Green Bay? Can Myles Garrett get after Jordan Love, force them into some third and longs where they're at home? The crowd will be with them still. I'll be very intrigued to see this. Obviously, I like the Packers, but it may be a little bit closer than people think. But still, the Packers' talent will overwhelm them. They'll continue to run the ball with Josh Jacobs, 20 plus carries. It should be a great one. Houston versus Jacksonville. I think one of the best games of the week. Houston, the back-to-back AFC South champions in desperate mode, 0-2, lost a heartbreaker to basically two heartbreakers to the Rams, fumbling on that last drive in Rams territory and then losing last minute to the Buccaneers. Should be a great one. I'm riding with them just a little bit more desperate. Jacksonville, I like what they're seeing from their offense, but I think Trevor Lawrence, has made some turnover mistakes. I think Houston's defense may be able to get one or two, but it will be interesting. Jacksonville's front seven, Josh Hines Allen, Trayvon Walker, they can easily get after CJ Stroud and make this offense uncomfortable because Houston's offensive line, like I said, has been a big mess. And I've never been high on Houston. Yes, I did have them winning the division, so this is kind of my last desperate move to keep that hope alive because it looks like the Colts probably will win it now. And Jacksonville looks just like a better team than Houston, but I just find that Houston's high in talent. I think they have to figure out a way to get this done. I think their defense is too good to let them start 0-3. Cincinnati versus Minnesota, the battle of backups. My Minnesota Vikings starting Carson Wentz. I think the biggest X factor in this one will be if Darisaw can play. Tom Pelissero reported that barring a setback, he should be able to go, and that'll be big. Considering Trey Hendrickson is on the other side, who's the Bengals' biggest strong defender and one of the best edge rushers in football, led the league in back-to-back years in sacks. So obviously that's the biggest thing to keep an eye out on. Shamar Stewart's going to be out. Both teams are banked up with injuries, but hopefully I'm hoping Andrew Van Ginkel should be good to go. Jeff Okudah back. But yeah, Darisaw, I don't think Ryan Kelly will play in this one. But yeah, it's just about backups. I just trust the Vikings defense a little bit more. I think this is finally a week Jefferson can go off. Jefferson will want to go off versus his former teammate Jamar Chase, but it's also vice versa. Jake Browning has proven he can be a solid QB in this league when he needs to step in like he did 2 years ago and actually beat my Vikings. But I'm just going to wrap with the home team here. Carson Wentz, we'll see. I also think this is a must win for the Vikings, at 1-1, but their schedule's really tough out of the bye. So they need to rack up some wins here, especially without Joe Burrow Bengals. But Cincinnati's looking to start 3-0 and, hopefully build out a big lead. So even if they do lose some games, if Joe Burrow can come back at the end of the year, they can go make a run. But it should be a great one. Pittsburgh versus New England, another intriguing one. But just the Alex Highsmith injury out, TJ Watt hasn't looked the same. I think the Patriots offense will be able to be able to pass the ball again like they did against Miami. Drake May, Jalen Ramsey might be able to make a play or two. I think Aaron Rodgers in the Steelers offense will look better than it did last week against Seattle, even though New England's defense is improved. Milton Williams, Harold Landry up front. I think they might be able to generate enough pressure to make Aaron Rodgers uncomfortable. I think this is like a 24-23 game. New England squeaks it out barely. Rams versus Eagles. We're getting blessed with a lot of great games. Give me the Rams in the upset. I think the Rams with Devontae Adams, this offense looks elite. The defense, front seven with Byron Young, Jared Verse, they can get after it. I think this is going to be a revenge game. I think Philly, they're going to settle it eventually. They're 2-0, beating the Cowboys and going into Arrowhead. But the offense just hasn't looked great so far. We know Saquon has the Rams number, but I think they'll eventually have to air it out. Their scheme has just been too predictable. I think if they win this one, it's going to be A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith finally getting going. And I wouldn't mind Devontae Smith getting going because I need that for fantasy, even though I think I'll put him on the bench this week. I need him and, this offensive scheme to prove that, he can be a starter on my team. But overall, they're one of the best wide receiver duos. They have to get going. But like I said, my biggest fear is this might turn into like a Brian Johnson 2023 situation where it's just the offense is too predictable and they get figured out. And I think a great coach team like the Rams, they'll want revenge from that divisional round game. And we forget how tough the Rams played them. It came down to a last second stop by that defense, but should be a great one. Tampa Bay versus New York. Tampa Bay's at home. I trust their offense more. I think this could be, a sneaky, very close game. Tyrod Taylor will take care of the football. I think he has a higher floor on this offense. He'll be able to sling it to Garrett Wilson, get Breece Hall going. But they won't have that upside like they did in week 1 with Justin Fields. But they might be able to, control some clock. And especially Emeka Ibuka is not practicing. I don't know if he'll be good to go. But still, Tampa Bay's run defense has looked very good so far. And I trust Baker, Mike Evans, Bucky Irving, Rashad White. Looks like one of the best running back duos so far to start the year, especially against Houston, which is a great defense. I think they'll make enough plays to get this done, especially at home, and looking to start 3-0. Indianapolis versus Tennessee. I think this is another game where it could be closer than people expect, but I just Indianapolis so far. Indiana Jones is his nickname, Danny Dimes. It looks like Kevin O'Connell and Shane Steichen have really rehabbed him into being a solid starter. Jonathan Taylor. I think this offense will do enough. And Tyler Warren looks like a stud. I think Tennessee's defense can make him uncomfortable, though. This may be the first week he has a turnover, or Indianapolis is going to punt the ball for sure. Division game. In Tennessee doesn't want to start 0-3 either at home. And they did look solid against the Rams for over a half. They were leading in the second half at one point, I believe. But still, I think the Colts are the better team, and they'll just be able to squeak this one out. Las Vegas versus Washington. The biggest concern for me is Jane Daniels' knee. Maybe by the time this is uploaded, we'll find out. But I still haven't liked what I've seen from the Commanders' offense. Obviously, the Raiders didn't like what I saw last week, but their defense has been solid so far. I think Geo Smith has a bounce-back game. GNT finally gets going. I think Washington's still going to be a great team. Jay Nails was my MVP pick to start, but I think the Terry McLaurin connection is going to take some time because missing all of training camp isn't easy for a receiver because you got to get back on time with your QB. And the offense has just not looked that great so far, but it's only 2 weeks. I'm not going to overreact. But I think Vegas just wins just with the question mark at quarterback. Denver versus Los Angeles, another great division game, 4 o'clock. Denver doesn't want to start 1-2 after they should be 2-0. That call against Indianapolis was unfortunate. But the defense did look a little bit exposed. I think the Chargers at home, Keenan Allen, Quinn Johnson looks improved. You still have Vlad McConkey. Maybe this is a week he really breaks out. Najee Harris, Omari Hampton, can he get going will be the biggest thing. Denver's defense, though, is obviously looking for a bounce back, and that offense is looking to continue its success from the game against the Colts. Should be another close one, but I think these two teams will split. Chargers at home. Give me the Chargers. New Orleans versus Seattle. I love my boy Sammy Darnold. I love the Seahawks team. The defense looks elite with Mike McDonald. They finally got Cooper Kupp more involved. JSN looks like he could be fantasy wide receiver 1 this season. Kenneth Walker looks like a stud. Maybe Charbonnet hasn't looked the best so far. Can he get going? Will be a question mark. But this is New Orleans' first road test in a tough environment. Lock of the week. Give me Seattle winning this one and going to 2-1. Dallas versus Chicago. I think this will be an interesting one. Just Chicago, how do they look after allowing 52 points to the Lions starting 0-2 in the division? You need to win this one. I think that place will be still rocking, but Dallas's offense, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Javonte Williams, they look really good. Dallas's offensive line looks much improved compared to last year. I think the defense, though, Caleb Williams, Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, they'll be able to put up some points in this one. No doubt. I think this could be another close game, but when it comes down to it, Brandon Aubrey might hit some kicks that we don't expect. So give me the Dallas Cowboys winning a close one. And then Arizona versus San Fran should be another great one. Division matchup. I think, this finally might be the week, though, just without Brock Purdy. That comes back to bite them. The Cardinals haven't looked the best, but I do have the Cardinals win the NFC West. So it's kind of just, a stand of hopefully Marvin Harrison can get going. And they set a statement that they're 3-0 in a big win in the division that they can play. Giants versus Kansas City should be a good one. It'll be interesting to see how Giants front 7 match up against Kansas City's O-line. But, Kansas City, battle of 2 0-2 teams. Which team do I trust more? Just the better quarterback. Xavier Worthy come back. Travis Kelce, I think, will be looking for some revenge from his big drop last week that led to the pick that ultimately lost him the game. I think I trust Chiefs defense. I trust more. Give me Kansas City. And then Detroit versus Baltimore should be a battle of 2 great teams, 2 electric offenses, 2 very solid defenses. But I just think Baltimore at home, Lamar, the best quarterback in the world, arguably. Derrick Henry, I think, will have another bounce back game because didn't look the best last week, but didn't need him. Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. Weapons all over the place, a very solid offensive line. In that defense, Kyle Hamilton, I just trust them to make a play or 2 in this one to swing the difference. But Detroit, prove why they're not, a fraud team. They're a great team, and they'll come out and, make a statement. But with that being said, so those are my final picks. Let me know what you agree, disagree with. What's your team this year? What game are you most excited for to see? Because it should be another great week of football. Have some fun college games. We'll obviously recap those. But with that being said, as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. We're going to be here, year round. In all season should be a fun one. So if you're into football and enjoy this kind of content, really appreciate it. Trying to reach 100 subscribers. But with that being said, thank you guys for listening and have a good weekend. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.